How's it going, everybody? Welcome back. It's Monday. After the carnage that was week 3, we're going to get into the recap and look back at it. What decisions we made were right, what decisions were wrong, where we were wrong, were we unlucky, or was the process bad, and how can we get better moving forward? Because the only way to actually improve at Daily Fantasy is to take a look at yourself in the mirror every Monday after these Sunday slates. And everything isn't you got unlucky. That's a common mistake of losing players, is to look back at a slate and go, oh, everything happened and it never goes my way and I'm unlucky and all these other people are just lucky and they get lucky every single week and year after year and month after month and they're just luckier than I am. Nobody is more lucky or less lucky than anybody else. Luck will even out over time. That is a constant. That is something that is going to happen. There is luck involved in this game, but the skill is being able to win year after year, season after season, month after month as the season goes along, in an NFL season week after week. Other sports day by day. But you have to look at your process and evaluate your decisions that you made so that you cannot make the same mistakes twice, and so you can move forward making better decisions every single time, because daily fantasy, much like any other type of investing, is all about the decisions that you make. Making good decisions is going to lead to profit in the future. So let's get right to it. We're going to go to my best buys column. I'm going to go player by player and see what we got right and what we got wrong. So here's my best buys piece from this week, from week 3. It's an insider piece on ESPN.com. If you are not an ESPN Insider, why not? It's not that expensive. You can also get it by subscribing to the magazine. You get a free insider account for that. So you get a piece of paper magazine you can read at home. Something to put on your coffee table, something to read in the bathroom, however you like to digest magazines, and you get the free insider piece, which hopefully can give you profit across as the season goes on. And we've done pretty well the first 2 weeks. This week there was a little bit of carnage, obviously starting off right at the top. Cam Newton, one of the 3 quarterbacks that I picked as a core play, a solid play, and Cam Newton is not the Cam Newton of old, though we did see him rush in 1 touchdown this week. Ended the day with 11.3 fantasy points, 167 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions against as cherry an opponent as you can get in the passing game. Really disappointing day for Cam. I was disappointed in him as well. From a fantasy perspective, Cam the man, fine. Love the outfit. I mean, I live for Cam Newton's outfits. Walking into the stadium in pregame and then looking at him at the postgame presser, they're just outstanding. It's not something I would wear. I can't pull that off, but when you're young, you're handsome, you're athletic, you're tall, you have all the money in the world, sure, you wear whatever you want. It's very Russ Westbrookian, but you know what? It didn't translate to fantasy points. And I may be done with Cam as a cash game play moving forward if he can't perform at home against the New Orleans Saints, who are as bad a pass defense as there can be. Matthew Stafford. Now this one kind of ended up being middling. 16.46 DraftKings points, 25 of 45 for 264, 1 touchdown and interception, but got a touchdown called back on the last play of the game, and then they ran off the other 8 seconds where they could have possibly scored again. That would have put him over 20 points on the day. It would have put him in a situation where he's beating cash game value and is at least tournament viable. He did not get there because of that callback. This is one where I feel we got a little bit unlucky because of that call. I think that the play was right. 264 yards, would have had about 275 with 2 touchdowns and no picks. I think that that's a good play that just didn't go 100% our way at the end. Kirk Cousins obviously kind of went bonkers. He was somebody who has started off slow each of the last 2 years. 2015, 2016 was a QB 30 or below. The first 2 weeks of those 2 seasons was a QB 6 the rest of the way each of those 2 seasons. This week, 25 of 30 against the Raiders. Finally turning back into the pumpkin that we thought that they were a little bit, being a defense that we can attack with Emerson on the outside. 365, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, only 5 completions, 29.8 DraftKings points, and an absolute smash due to the big plays that he was able to complete. Derek Carr, intriguing for tournaments, did not come through. Andy Dalton, I got a lot of flack last week for saying Andy Dalton would have been fine. He was fine at 5,100. Le'Veon Bell, still not back to the old Le'Veon Bell, but 21.8 points for 8.8K. I'm okay with that, right? We pay for Le'Veon Bell because of the floor and the access to his ceiling. He has a 35-point ceiling pretty much every week, but if he's getting us low to mid-20s in points, you're going to be okay with that. 15 carries for 61 with a touchdown, 6 catches on 7 targets. This is what really buoys his floor for 37 yards and no touchdowns. Still not a game with 100 yards from scrimmage for him. Jay Ajayi, this was the big bust on the week. for multiple reasons. A, he got dinged. Sometimes you get injured in a game. Sometimes you take a shot to the groin early, and it cost him a few plays early in the game, and then the game got out of their reach. The game flow went out of control for them as the Jets went ahead. I'm going to say that this was kind of a process mistake by me. Obviously, I'm going to keep hunting the Jets, but conference opponents on the road, probably a spot where I could have gone somewhere else. You'll see that I did play him in cash games, but I did go up to Kareem Hunt. There probably should have been my best buy here instead of Jay Ajayi. This was a mistake by me. Obviously, I'm still going to attack the Jets, but probably not at home with a conference opponent that they know very, very well. Ty Montgomery did Ty Montgomery things once again. 13 fantasy points, still got over 90% of the usage, still played over 90% of the snaps for Green Bay. 12 carries for 35 yards and almost historic inefficiency in the pass game. 8 catches, which is awesome, on 12 targets. 15 yards. That's unheard of. How do you get targeted 12 times, catch 8 balls for 15 yards? Absolutely amazing that happened there. DeAndre Hopkins, solid floor for him. 8 targets only, a low target game for him, but caught 7 of them for 76. Once again, if you told me that Houston was going to have the game that they had, score over 30 points against New England, and the rookie quarterback was going to throw for all the yards, Deshaun Watson was going to throw for all the yards that he threw for and complete as many passes as he completed, but DeAndre Hopkins was only going to have 8 targets, and we talked about how inefficient he was with targets before, right? He was getting 13 and 16 targets, catching 7 balls. His efficiency was outstanding. They just didn't throw the ball his way, but when they did, it was obviously catchable. This one worked out fine if you played him in cash games, but mostly based on all the busts around him. Devontae Adams, I'm going to get to this one a little bit when I get to the cash game breakdown. 5,600. As the week went on, things kind of changed, and I was looking for value. He did not exactly work out as a cash game play. 6 targets, 3 catches, 60 yards, 9 DraftKings points. This was based on if Jordy was out as well. He wasn't, so I went a different direction. Rashard Higgins, I was too heavy on this week for tournaments. I like Rashard Higgins as a prospect. I loved him in college. He is obviously a good football player. It did not work out for him this week. I think we were a little bit unlucky. He posted a donut at halftime, though he had 4 targets and was second on the team at halftime in targets. I mean, unheard of that he would have had that much inefficiency. Then he caught 2 balls for 10 yards, ended up with 3 points. This was partly mistake and partly unlucky. If he catches 2 of 4 in the first half, obviously, if he gets rolling a little bit, we saw him kind of go off. We saw that offense go off. Kenny Britt was the one who was the biggest beneficiary of it. We come down to the tournament targets, guys that I thought would be under-owned that you could really take advantage of. Odell Beckham Jr. ended with 28.9 points. A.J. Green with 30.1 points. Devin Funchess was the pivot here from the $4,000 player. And the mistake here for me for Higgins was going after Higgins in this spot because of the role on defense. The matchup that he was in against Indianapolis, and not going for Rishard Matthews. I picked the wrong Shard, right? We went with Rashard Higgins because of the matchup that he was in, because of the service he was going to get and the injuries around him. And it kind of clouded the vision for me, at least when I was writing this column, although I was overweight on Rishard Matthews in tournaments. To not have Rishard Matthews here in Best Buys was a mistake by me at 4,200 with the amount of service that he was getting, knowing that they have the offense that they have in Tennessee. That was probably a mistake by me. The safer play would have been going for Matthews. I went for the alley-oop here with Rashard Higgins, and I banged it off the back of the rim. Tight ends, Travis Kelce, big miss. This should have been Zach Ertz, who came through and obviously was somebody that I ended up with my cash game lineup on FD because of the pricing there. I even said it on the Q&A stream before lock, the anti-Tinkercast. If you ask me, people were asking what are my conviction plays, what do I think is going to happen? I said I think Ertz is going to get into the box, and he did. Only 1 target for Travis Kelce. That's criminally low for somebody who has more 10-target games than any other tight end in football. Did not think if he was going to bust, it was going to be that low. Just obviously a little bit of a mistake by me here. Jack Doyle, once again, I think this was unlucky. I'm going to call unlucky here and not a mistake. 5 targets, 2 catches. 16 yards. He also had a fumble, which held him down just a little bit. Here's the problem here. If I told you that Jacoby Brissett was going to throw for the yards and touchdowns and efficiency that he had against Cleveland this week, you would immediately have gravitated towards Jack Doyle. right? Obviously, the production came from T.Y. Hilton in the offense this week. I think if they run this game back 100 times, Jack Doyle reaches value probably about 70 times, maybe 65 times. He didn't do it in the one game that mattered because we don't live life in a simulation, no matter what C.D. Carter tells you. But I think that this was more unlucky than a bad play. I would make that process play every single time and twice on Sundays. No defensive smash this week. The Eagles did not do well, even though they had a shutout at halftime. They got no pressure on the quarterback. The Giants definitely adjusted, tearing up the corners. They needed to get pressure on Eli. Eli was getting the ball out early. 2 interceptions, 0 sacks. I did not expect the 0 sacks. 24 points against all of them in the second half, ended up with 4 points. And the Titans defense, 1 fantasy point, 0 interceptions, 1 sack, 27 points against. So let's look at the cash game lineup real quick. Not that one. Where do we go? Give me 2 seconds to find this. Cash game lineup. I'm going to bring up the 50-50 game. The $1,000 the 1,060 50-50 game. As soon as I can. Results. Bring that over here. We came in 6th in this one. And you can see my cash game lineup here. So let's go through the lineup in this one. 50 players are in this one. It's some of the biggest names in daily fantasy every single week. I love this for comparison. I go through this and compare my lineup to everybody else's to see the decisions that they made and what decisions did I make and how could I have made them differently or better. Usually I play the chalk. I felt that there was some pretty easy value chalk. Let's start at the top, though. Matthew Stafford. I went with him over Kirk Cousins. It obviously cost me 13 fantasy points, which ended up costing me a qualifier this week as I came in second in the 5K queue by about 5 or 6 points. Obviously, having Stafford over Cousins cost me that, but I can't really say that it was a bad play. I'm fine with Stafford there. Jay Ajayi, a little bit of a process mistake, but 33% of the crowd was on him. Should have been Hunt, but I did have Hunt in my lineup. The way that I went this week was to try and stuff, remember Team Jam him in from last year? I was trying to stuff as much running back usage as I could get in my lineups because I felt that the wide receivers were just shaky across the board. And I felt that the running backs had as much ceiling and more floor than the that I was choosing here. It had as much ceiling and more floor than the wide receivers like Odell Beckham Jr., who in the first half was terrible. AJ Green, as much as I believe that AJ Green and Andy Dalton were good plays this week, I was hesitant to use them in cash on DK, though on FD at 7,500, AJ Green was absolutely a must play to me there. I had him in my cash game lineup over there. So Ajayi and Bell, 72% owned for Bell in the 1K. Wide receivers, I went value, and then underpriced. So Geronimo Allison was 3K. And with Cobb out, I felt that he would play enough snaps to return value. Now, a lot of this came on one play, right? He had like a 75-yard catch in overtime to put them in position to win that game. But without that, he still had 5 catches, right, for 35 yards. So that puts me right at about what I needed from him for 3K to be all right with it. Obviously, that 13-point catch put him over the top and put me in position to win the majority of my cash games. Rashard Higgins was the bust that we already spoke about. DeAndre Hopkins, fine, 14.5 points for 6K. Obviously, I want to get 18, but like if you miss value by like 3 points, it's not killing you. When you miss value by 15 or 20 points, like here with Jay Ajayi, I need to get over 20 points out of Jay Ajayi in my cash game. I get 4. That's a much bigger miss than Rashard Higgins getting 3 when I needed like 12, right? Much bigger miss here than here. Much bigger miss here than here with DeAndre Hopkins. Vernon Davis, I plugged him in here and we talked about this on the Anti-Tinkercast. I left myself an extra 100. I needed to pay down. I wanted Doyle and I had Doyle all week, but I couldn't get up to Kareem Hunt, which is Sunday morning was somebody that I decided I needed to have in my lineups alongside of Ajayi and Bell. So in order to get up to Kareem Hunt and leave myself the $100 extra remaining that I needed to have access to Vernon Davis in the case that Jordan Reed was out so that I could pivot upward to Jared Cook. If Reed was there, I don't want to play Davis, obviously, so I would have gone up to Cook. I left myself the 100 extra to get there. Plugged Davis in from the beginning because that was a question I was asked. Did you have Davis in or did you pivot late? Davis was the guy that I wanted. I decided I wanted Sunday morning and left myself the space to pivot upward to get to Reed, and that allowed me to get to Hunt. Coming down from 3,600 to 3,100 available here for tight end allowed me the extra money to get up to Kareem Hunt here. I also had a choice if I wanted to just say I'm going to just plug Vernon Davis, which we did not know early. It was like, well, Reed is doubtful. I could have gone up to A.J. Green. I felt that Hunt was the better play, had a safer floor, similar ceiling. We saw that A.J. Green ended the day with 30.1 points, Kareem Hunt 28.3 points, so pretty negligible difference there. But the 16.8 points from Vernon Davis was an absolute smash. Now I went value, right? So 4K, 3K, and 3K. So I've spent $10,000 on these three players, Allison, Higgins, and Davis, to allow me to get what I thought would be 20-plus touches, what I felt would be 20-plus touches and 100 yards, what I felt would be 20-plus touches and 100 yards. And it worked out because 2080 had that huge run at the end that helped. Obviously, Allison helped. But the process, we talked about this at the open. You're going to get lucky, you're going to get unlucky, right? But putting yourself in the right positions week after week allows you to find those lucky spots. Like, there's no way that I'm just, I'm full of run good for 6 years now as a daily fantasy player. Oh, you just get lucky all the time. Well, not really. I put myself in positions to have good things happen. So 10K in salary. And we talk about wanting 3X from our value plays for cash games. 150 is our point target. Obviously, nobody got there this week, especially if you look at the top of this. One guy got there. Schneefhead. Nice work, Schneefhead, for breaking the 150 you should be profitable margin. I got to 130.66 with this lineup right here. Obviously, I said I had the Eagles defense. And you can see that most of these plays are right out of my best buys column. Most weeks, it's like 8 guys that are out of my best buys column. This week, as I said from that tweet at the beginning of the show, yesterday I was all up in the air and changing everything up on Sunday morning based on what the trepidation that I felt with the wide receivers, which forced me onto more volume at the running back spots. I ended the week going 122 and 21 in head-to-head games. That's an 85.3 clip, following 2 80 and 90% win weeks in head-to-heads in week 1 and 2. That's completely unsustainable. It's been an outstanding run so far. Last year was my best win percentage in head-to-heads for an entire season, and I think I finished at like 78 or 79% win rate in NFL head-to-heads last year, and my lifetime is somewhere in the mid-60s. So like 80 to 90% completely unsustainable. But as you can see here, this is a 50-man game against some of the sharpest players in the industry. You can see all these guys are names that you'd recognize more than likely. At least most of them are people that you would recognize if you follow daily fantasy. And we finished 6 out of 50. So it's a 90th percentile lineup. We see it won 85% of the head-to-head games. The more individual head-to-head games you play against differentiated opponents, that's why I limit my opponents to taking one head-to-head game at each buy-in level, allows you to, the law of large numbers to take over, and for you to have your actual win rate be closer to the percentile number that your lineup scores versus the field in those weeks. So we had about a 90th percentile lineup. We won about 85% of our head-to-head games. I'll take it. Obviously, for tournaments, I had like 40% Higgins. I had 40% Ajayi. It was not going to be a winning week for me in GPPs, but the cash games, when you play them at the right amount, when you play a certain amount of volume, it can buoy your floor when you have a good cash game week like we did here, to not lose a ton just going GPP only or GPP heavy. So we'll be back on Friday for the Q&A. Look out for Best Buys and the Edge podcast coming out on Thursday of this week. Friday, I spent an hour with you at 3 p.m. Eastern time right here on twitch.tv/Al_Smizzle, where you guys can take part in the Q&A as well. And then again, on Sunday morning, right before lock, for the last 30 to 45 minutes, I take your questions again on the Anti-Tinkercast. Hopefully this has helped you guys improve your process. Hopefully you'll have some great questions for me by the time Friday rolls around. And until then, best of luck if you're playing the short slates. Bye, everybody.